All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mechanical Engineering Accepted Students Virtual Info Session. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on being accepted. My name is Sydney Trahan. I am an admissions counselor here at WPI. But I will not be giving this presentation today. I will let our presenters take the floor.
All right, thank you so much, Sydney. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session. I'm Professor Sarah Wodenschwartz. I'm an associate teaching professor in the Mechanical and Materials Engineering Department. Our department head, Jamal Yagubi, and our associate department head, John Sullivan, have been leading our department for the past several years. With us today, we also have two mechanical engineering seniors, Mary and Dan, and so they'll be here to talk about their senior project or MQP experience, as well as help answer any questions that you have about student life or choices for WPI. So I'm going to present some slides about the department for the first 15 minutes or so. Feel free to use the Q&A to ask questions while I'm talking, and we'll either be typing the answers or we'll answer them after the presentation, depending upon the best way to answer your question. All right. So now that you're accepted students, you might be thinking to yourself, well, why mechanical engineering? At WPI, you don't have to declare before you come to school. And so we like to say that the world depends on ME. It's a really exciting field, and it's number 7 amongst the best technology jobs with a very low unemployment rate. And so there's a lot of areas. Oops, I knew I shouldn't use the mouse. There's a lot of areas in mechanical and materials engineering. It's a very broad field. And so if you're interested in things like engines, alternative energies, different types of power systems, designing physical products, then mechanical and materials engineering might be the right field for you. Here we have some examples of different types of engines, including a really fun one where you have some circular motion based on some non-circular parts down in the bottom center there. So mechanical engineering has been one of the top 10 majors, right? Number 1 up to 2018 from 2008 to 2018. So it's a large field, and it continues to be very popular across the country. And so you might also be thinking, well, why WPI? You're likely making a challenging decision between multiple schools. And so WPI is a great place where theory and practice are merged, and it's a great place to be. I guess I have a timer possibly on my slides happening here. Let's try that again. There we go. It's a great place to mix both theory and practice. WPI is in the top 1% of starting salaries for students with their first jobs, and the 4th highest starting median salary, and 5 years consecutive high ranking in those pay scales. We also have a fantastic retention rate. And so we try to make sure that students feel supported from the very first time they come onto campus. And that gets shown in our retention from students from the first year retained into their 2nd year. We have a program called the Insight program, where each student gets paired into a group based on where they're living, and they get both either a faculty or staff advisor, as well as a community advisor who's an older student, to help them learn more about WPI. And that really helps us with our retention rate. Once you're at WPI, we really want you to be successful and to stay at WPI. So mechanical materials engineering, we like to combine theory and practice to create new designs, systems, and products. And so the products, systems, and tools require interactions with teams. And so we do a lot of project-based learning where you're working with interdisciplinary teams with engineers, scientists, artists, and other folks. And so again, we really try to focus on the project-based education, which is both in the classroom of your core courses, as well as large projects that you'll be experiencing throughout all 4 of your years at WPI. be it the GPS project that you can do in your first year, your humanities project, and generally done through your sophomore year, your interactive qualifying project, that's the project where many students go abroad, and then your major qualifying project, that's within your discipline in your senior year. So within mechanical and materials engineering, the undergraduate degree that we award is in mechanical engineering. We also have graduate degrees, both master's and PhDs, awarded in mechanical engineering, materials science and engineering, and manufacturing engineering. So in that degree program, we have the types of courses that you're taking broken up into 3 core areas within the discipline. And so there's the mechanics STEM. And so you're going to take things like statics, where things aren't moving, dynamics, where things are moving, and then stress to see how you design things based on those types of loads being applied. We have the energy STEM. So that's where you're going to learn your thermodynamics, fluids, and heat transfer. And you learn more about energy systems and how you can create power based on different types of mechanisms. And then we have other courses that supplement these in materials, in electrical engineering, and in experimentation to support a well-rounded education. And so within all 3 of these areas, there's ways that you can expand upon those different areas if you're interested. So if you really like the mechanical area, maybe you'll explore things like kinematics, where you get gears and linkages. Maybe you're really interested in materials engineering, and so maybe you'll look into more ceramics or biomedical materials. So each of these areas can be greatly expanded on, but we want to make sure that you get a chance to learn about all 3 of them before you go deeper into one of those depths. We also have a combined BS-MS degree that can be expedited and complete both of those degrees in 5 years. And some people are able to do this in an even shorter period of time if that's what they are looking to do. In terms of the general curriculum, when you come to WPI, you're going to get, depending upon your degree, you'll get a program chart. And they all look a little bit different for different degrees, but you'll end up seeing the mechanical one if you end up in the mechanical materials engineering department. And basically what it shows you is the different areas that you're going to be taking your courses. So all students, no matter what degree program they're in, they're going to be taking their humanities and arts requirements. They're going to have their interactive qualifying project. They'll take social science courses, and you'll also be taking courses in physical education. We make sure that we have some good space for free electives. These can be any courses that you really want to take. And then we have our basic math and science requirements. Often a lot of these are done in the first year. And the sophomore year, you usually jump into the mechanical systems STEM, where you're taking those static stress dynamics, and then one more advanced system level course in that area. And so the sheet here, along with the tracking sheet that you'll use, are how you can plot the course of your degree and your 4 years. And you can work both with your professional staff advisor as well as your major advisor. Once you actually declare your major, you'll have a major advisor within the department. So I mentioned that there are different projects, 4 projects, 4 years, and the one that's within the discipline, that's the major qualifying project that's generally done in your senior year. And before you reach that one, there's the Great Problem Seminar, or GPS, that you have the option to take, which is usually co-taught by faculty members from different disciplines. So you get a chance to see a very open-ended project, and you get to meet faculty from across campus, which is really exciting. But in terms of your major qualifying project, these are generally speaking year-long projects, and you're going to get to hear a bit from Mary and Dan about their specific projects. But they're projects that students, generally speaking, will design and build something that helps society in some way. To help support those, we have a cutting-edge machine facility full of Haas machines. We also have a lot of other lab spaces on campus for things like MEMS. We have additive manufacturing facilities, both basic 3D printers that students can use and have full access to, as well as advanced 3D printing opportunities on campus as well for different types of materials for different applications. There are research opportunities. So first years coming in will have the opportunity for a paid research position during their first year. You just have to apply to be eligible. Here in the upper left-hand corner, we have our department head. He's the second one from the left, flying on the Vomit Comet, or the zero-G experience. On the bottom left corner, you can see me back when I was an undergrad walking on the ceiling in the similar plane. A little bit more information about our manufacturing labs. Here are some pictures pre-COVID, although the shops are open back up again for full use as of now. And so we have students working on projects, and there's all different kinds of projects that you can do with different machines. One of the most common projects that students work on is a Stirling engine that you build as part of your introduction to machining course that you may choose to take if you decide to do so. It's a very popular course, and students make these fully functional Stirling engines as part of that course. And you can also make some passion projects. So here we have a student making an I Love Emmy 1800 cutout. Students will often post pictures of what they made. They email them to imade.this@wpi.edu. And some students will work on projects that don't relate to their courses at all. It might just be a complete passion project. Here was a student who was making changes to their bike, and so they wanted to modify their suspension system. And so here they have the components for that shown in action. So that's a little bit about the program in general. But I really want to turn things over to our students to talk a little bit more in detail about their senior projects. So Mary, why don't I turn it over to you first? Can you tell us a little bit about, and I'll stop our sharing so we can make us big again. Mary, why don't you tell us a little bit about the background of your project and then some of the things that you've been working on this year?
So my project is combining computer science and mechanical engineering. And so we're working on designing a recycling robot that will be like put over a conveyor belt in a recycling facility and be able to sense what is coming down the conveyor belt. And we specifically were focusing on cardboard. And so we had machine learning to detect which pieces of recycling were cardboard, and then we made a vacuum gripper mechanism that would move across linear rails and pick up the cardboard and then drop it off of the conveyor belt.
That's great. And do you want to share some of your exciting results of how it's doing?
It actually is working. We're very excited. It has like an 85% success rate of when it detects a piece of cardboard actually picking it up, which is a significant improvement on what we had at the beginning of the year. So we're very happy with it.
Wonderful. And for those who are curious, Mary's project is a continuation project, which often happens. And so in a previous year, students were able to actually design and build the conveyor belt system to move the cardboard along, which was a pretty exciting project as well. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, so my project is a ventriculoperitoneal smart shunt. I know that's a mouthful. So these devices are used for patients with hydrocephalus, which is a disease that prevents a person from naturally draining fluid out of their brain. And a shunt is a device that manually does it. But currently, the problems with them are that they tend to get obstructed, and you can't, until a patient exhibits symptoms, you don't know if they are not working anymore. So what we're trying to look at is how do we limit the obstructions from occurring? And if an obstruction does occur, how can we measure a change in pressure or flow to predict that it has occurred?
Fantastic. And Dan, could you talk a little bit, your project was a student proposed project, and so that's another way that projects get proposed. Can you talk a little bit how you formed your team? How did that process go?
Yeah, so actually I reached out to one of my good friends who actually is in biomedical engineering, because I thought this project would be good to cross over both departments, and she was super interested. So she reached out to a couple of her friends as well, who were also very interested in the project. And then Professor Wodenschwartz is actually my advisor, and you recruited 3 more people, right? Yes.
You're right. I actually forgot that that's how we ended up with the 2 sides of the team going, and the students ended up breaking up the project into 2 distinct, I would say 2 distinct directions, one materials based and one more mechanics based, so that the students who were interested in different areas and different aspects of the project could focus on the piece that they were most interested in. So thank you. I see there's a couple questions coming in to the chat, but let me say that we'll chat, and but if you have any questions, feel free to put them either in the Q&A or into the chat, and we're happy to answer them. I see that there's one about the first 3 classes that you would take in your first year, and both Mary and Dan gave great examples there. We're looking for balance and a mixture of things. And so usually we say, maybe a math, maybe a science, maybe a humanities, or some sort of mix of things that are like a little different from each other, is a good way to go. So Mary, you are a double major, right?
Yes.
And so can you talk a little bit about what being a double major is like?
I enjoy it. It's definitely a little bit more work just with having to fit in all the classes for 2 different majors. Depending on which 2 you pick, there is some overlap in classes, which you can double count, which is nice. But if there aren't any that overlap, you will probably have to overload a couple times, which is taking 4 classes instead of 3. People make it sound a lot more daunting than it actually is. As long as you're not taking like 4 really hard classes, you would be completely fine. If you're not sure if a class is going to be hard or not, I'd recommend talking to the students and not to the academic advisors, because they usually think classes are more difficult than they actually are. Whereas upperclassmen or like a friend that has already taken the class would probably know better.
Wonderful. And actually there's 2 questions in the chat directly about double majors. One is ME and CS. So as Mary was saying, having the overlap between the degrees helps a lot. With CS and ME, there's not quite as much overlap as there would be with robotics, RBE and ME. So with CS, there's 1 CS class that's required for mechanical engineering. And there are free electives that you could absolutely use for that overlap. But that one's going to be a little bit of a harder one to do. Still very possible to do, but it would certainly require overloading, like Mary was mentioning. In terms of the best ones, well, there's my dog Frank. In terms of the best ones for overlap, I think that ME and RBE is a really common one. Also, ME with BME is another common one. I'm going to mute myself for a sec. Dan, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you chose WPI?
Yeah, so one of the main reasons I chose WPI was I knew I wanted to do engineering, but I wasn't really sure necessarily what an engineer actually did. And WPI had this amazing project-based learning experience. And so I was like, great, I'll actually be able to learn what it means to be an engineer, get hands-on practical experience before I graduate. And now that is actually serving me very well as I'm starting to move into the next chapter.
Thank you, Dan. And I'll ask you this later because I know you had some job prospects on the horizon, and I can't wait to hear about them later. But as Dan is one of my advisors, we chat about a lot of these things. So we have a question in the chat about women in the incoming class. I don't know if Sydney, if you know the ratios yet, but I know that traditionally, or at least the last few years, for ME, do you know that 40% women?
Yeah, so overall we are, I don't know specifically for ME, but I do know like right now we're working on still shaping out the class a bit. So I don't have any particular numbers, but our percentage of female students, we're really trying to heavily increase as well. Obviously, to get more women involved in the STEM field would be wonderful.
Thank you. All right. And so we have what portion of ME students take internships? How easy is it to find one? So I don't know the numbers, but I know that going into between the junior and senior year, it is very common for students to have internships, either with a company, if that's what they're interested in, or with a research experience. A lot of students do REUs or research experiences for undergrads, where you usually go to another university and you participate in research at that paid research at that location. We have 2 large career fairs every year that help students find internships, as well as our Career Development Center. They were ranked #1. So do you maybe remember the exact phrasing?
Oh gosh, I have it in my pamphlet and I can go get that.
I'll just say we have a fantastic career development center that does a really great job with helping students find internships and jobs. That's not to say you don't have to apply to a lot of places to get your name out there, as is common with the field right now. But I think our students are very successful at finding jobs and internships. Mary and Dan, do either of you have any feedback or info? I know you've both done those.
Definitely apply early and go to all of the career fairs on campus. Most of them are for companies that are in the Massachusetts area, so that might be frustrating if you don't live in the Massachusetts area. I'm personally from Michigan, and so that was kind of a barrier for me. But even just the experience is great, just getting comfortable talking to companies. So if you find the company back home that you applied to and that wants to interview with you, have that experience talking to other people.
Yeah, I'd kind of second what Mary says. And I personally think going to the career fair is super valuable, because even if you don't get a job from it or you aren't intending, it will serve you very well, because you'll have practice interviewing with companies. And so my advice would be go to the career fair.
That's wonderful. And that's actually something that I always tell my first year students, even if they're not looking in that very first career fair when they're at WPI, to go and just experience the environment. And then you can kind of, it can be, there's a lot of people there, a lot of companies that are there. And so just being in the physical space before you start looking is a great way to get used to it. Okay, thank you, Sydney. Yes, voted is number 5 for best career services in 2019. That was a very exciting award. In terms of IEPs, I see Dan, you're typing some stuff about it, but I'll also mention we have OAS. What does it stand for? Office of Accessibility Services. I'm so used to using the acronym. At WPI, you'll get very used to using acronyms a lot. And they work with students to and their providers to get accommodations sorted. And those accommodation letters, if you choose that you want to use them, you can have them sent to your faculty members, and so that they know about your accommodations. And a lot of times those come down to conversations that you have with your faculty member about what it is that you need to help you be successful in the course. So there's the letter piece, but then there's also discussions about what would be helpful for you. Is it sitting in a particular place in the room? Is it just that you need extended time, but you want to figure out how you can have access to the faculty member during the exam time, whatever that might be. There can be a lot of discussion that you can have to figure out what fits for you. This is definitely a question for Mary and Dan. Which other schools were you accepted to and you decided to go to WPI instead of those?
A lot of mine are, I guess, Kettering University in Michigan, Michigan Tech, RPI, RIT. I was accepted to all of them. I applied to MIT as more of a joke, but I think that was the only school that I didn't get into because the other ones were all ones that I thought would be in my reach of getting into.
Awesome. And before we go to Dan, can you just comment a little bit about having all of those choices? What was it about WPI that made you choose coming here?
So when my dad and I went on my college campus tours, I didn't really have a favorite of all of the colleges I visited. And then I was writing all of the different essays to apply, and it was like, why do you want to go to this school? Why do you want to go to that school? And this was I think for some of them, I submitted bullet points of this is why I want to go here. And this one, I was able to write an entire paragraph, and I was like, that's probably a better sign. I actually have reasons. And then ultimately, because Kettering was also very similar to that, Kettering didn't have a robotics engineering program at the time, and that's my double major. So that was the one I picked because I knew ME in either places is a great opportunity. So.
Yeah, so the other schools I was accepted to, I didn't apply to that many schools actually, were UMass Lowell, Merrimack College, UNH, and Fairfield University. And I am actually from New Hampshire, so it was kind of a tough decision between here or UNH, but ultimately for me it just came down to size and what I would get out of the school, and I felt like I was going to get a lot more out of WPI that would help me in the future. And also I didn't want to be at a school that was 15,000 students. I wanted to be at more of a mid-sized school that's around 5,000, like WPI.
Excellent. Thank you. I started typing a response to one of them in the Q&A. I got myself distracted. One of the questions in the Q&A was the average starting salary for ME. I have in my notes here that it's $61,000 approximately, which was 12th out of over 1,000 colleges that were surveyed. I think that was from Pay Scale Inc., but my notes have it in not the best place to send it or to locate the source.
When I was evaluating my job offer, I think I saw something from the CDC that said for ME at WPI, 2 years ago, it was about just under 70,000.
Perfect, even better. As I'm looking here, I think this note is an old note, and I was just trying to track down the date that I wrote it. So I will update my notes. Thank you, Dan. Let's see, we've got a lot of other questions. How easy is it to fit a co-op in with the ME schedule when I have to extend to 5 years and come with AP credits to do a co-op? So usually co-ops, so you would work with the CDC to figure out how you'd fit your co-op in. Usually a co-op is a summer and a semester, so that's 2 terms. And so you have in the ME tracking sheet, there are 45 courses that you have to take in order to graduate. and you are at WPI for 48 blocks of time if you consider 3 classes each term. And so there are 3 extra courses that you already have built in that they can be for courses that you don't pass the first time, or that you decide that you thought you might want to take a course and you realize, you know what, this course is not for me, and allows you to sort of have some experimentation, trying different courses, because there's those 3 courses built in. However, you can also use that time to work towards something like a co-op or a minor or a concentration, or your double major, if that's what you were doing. And so what that would mean is you would need to find 3 other courses worth of time. And so that could be 3 AP courses, that could be 3 overloads, that could be a summer class or 2. There's a lot of ways to fit that in. But generally speaking, a co-op would not require you to extend to 5 years. Most people manage to fit those in 4 years, and are just strategic about where they place it based on the timing of their IQP, their junior year project. So there's a little bit of figuring out the timing of when that's going to go based on where and when you might go abroad. Lovely. I think those are all of our chat ones. So I'm going to ask Mary and Dan, could you tell us a little bit about, since you've been at WPI for 4 years, what are some of your favorite things about WPI? We'll start with Dan.
Yeah, I guess I really like the opportunity and encouragement we get from professors and faculty to try new things and just experiment on stuff. Because, for example, when I came into WPI, I had never 3D printed anything before. I had never CAD'd before. And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm an expert, but like I am quite good at making designs in CAD, and I do know what I have the ability to 3D print, and have been able to print some stuff that's really cool and really useful. And also we've had many opportunities to be able to try some new things, and, like, for an example, use the machine shop that Professor Rodenschwartz is talking about outside of class, and be able to machine some stuff out of metal, which is pretty cool, actually. So I really hope that if you end up coming here, or wherever you end up going, you get to experience that, because some of these CNC machines are really fun to use.
I think some of my it was favorite things at WPI, right? That was the question. Yeah, okay. Not at WPI, but like a block away. There's a restaurant called Bagel Time. It's delicious. Definitely go there. But at WPI, freshman year, I was a huge fan of my like insight team that I was paired with. It made it super easy to make friends, and honestly, I still talk to a lot of them. They were like a great support system for all of freshman year. Other things, I guess more on like the robotics engineering side, you make some great relationships and just great memories from staying in a lab until like 3 a.m. trying to get your robot to work. Those are always very enjoyable. Um, I know a lot of people really enjoy their IQP. Dan and I can't talk on that too much because we didn't get to go abroad. We were actually in the same IQP group. But I know a lot of people also really enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, I will say on the IQP front, during the height of COVID, a lot of the travel was suspended because we weren't allowed to go to many countries. I believe all of the projects for the past C&D term have been able to go again. Is that right, Sydney? Or there might be a couple that got moved still, but they got to go somewhere, but I don't remember the numbers.
Yeah, I think a vast majority of them, if there were any, I want to say the one to Japan may have. Some countries are a little bit more strict with the COVID precautions. But for the most part, I think the vast majority of them were able to go, which is awesome for our students to get that opportunity again, because I know everyone was really missing it.
And there are a few opportunities for your major qualifying project to be abroad. It's more common for your junior year project to be abroad, but if that's something that you're interested in, I advise the Switzerland major qualifying project site. So there's at least a few teams every year that go either to Switzerland or Japan or Sweden. We have a few for ME students to go to have a second abroad experience. I think Dan answered this question before I got to it in the chat in terms of 3D printing, and I'm curious, there is also, so yeah, there's a lot of trainings in the makerspace. There is a new course that started this year, I believe, that is a making related course. So it's not just 3D printing, it's all different kinds of making skills. And so if you wanted to take a class in something like that, there is the ability to do it, but there's also lots of other ways. And then a lot of other courses. I teach an intro to CAD course, and part of that course, students do some 3D printing in the makerspace. And there are other courses that use the 3D printers or other pieces of the makerspace as part of the general curriculum in those courses, which is pretty cool. What would you say is a typical school social life balance for ME students? Mary, well, you're a double major. So what's it like for a double major? What's your balance?
I mean, it's kind of what you make of it. You have time to go out and be social, if you choose to do so, or if you want to like stay in your room and play video games, you also have time to do that. It's really just about figuring out what works best for you and making the most of your time. I just like schedule my stuff. I don't do a ton of clubs, just based on my own choice, but I know there's lots of people that my roommate is like never home because he's always out doing something with someone. But it's what you choose to do with it, your time.
Yeah, Mary mentioned clubs. There are a large number of clubs on campus. Have either of you, are you currently or have you been involved in some clubs?
Yeah, so freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I was involved with VexU Robotics, which is VEX Robotics, but at the college level. And then also all 4 years I've been involved in ACS on campus, which runs Relay for Life on campus. So we just did that last week or 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember, but it was a ton of fun. I was very sleep deprived the next day, but it was worth it.
And in terms of clubs, I think I'm the advisor for maybe 4 clubs at this point, including the brand new minted pickleball club. So for any of you interested in pickleball, we now have that on campus as well. I'd say I'm also the advisor for Engineers Without Borders. Our current project site is in El Cisne de Conchon, which is just outside of Cuenca, which is where we also have an IQP site. We've been working with the community there, working on water access and water resources. I believe we're near the end of that project. I think we're in the 4th year maybe of working with that community. And generally with Engineers Without Borders, you make somewhere between like a 3 to 6 year commitment with the community, which has been really exciting. They've installed both rainwater harvesting systems and done work on developing a source protection for a mountainside spring that the community has access to. So there's been a lot of different work doing measurements and working with the community. And so that's been a really exciting project that club's been working on. Weekdays versus weekends. What are those like? Or Dan, if you have other thoughts on the balance of social versus non-social time, either one.
Yeah, I guess I can speak to weekdays versus weekends. Um, I will not lie, especially this year, my weekdays have been very crazy. Um, but usually I've been on weekdays, I go from like starting class relatively early-ish and have usually 2 or 3 classes per day, a few meetings in between just with my MQP team and or with other clubs I'm involved in. And then um, like on the weekends, I typically have a lot less going on. I usually use the weekends to get done with some homework. However, if you want to get all your homework done during the week, in between classes, and then have your weekends free to do whatever else, like it's super easy to do that, and you can have quite a lot of fun on the weekends because if you so choose, it's very easy to get everything done during the week.
Wonderful. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, so if anyone has any final questions, if you want to be putting those into the Q&A, we are still happy to answer them. Dan, did you accept an offer yet?
Yes, I accepted a offer at GE Aviation as or in their manufacturing engineering development program. So quite excited
Fantastic.
about that.
So excited. Mary, I haven't talked to you about this yet. Mary, where are you in the job search part?
Just interviewing, trying to find somewhere to go.
Interviewing stage. This is the time of year of the interviewing and or the getting offers. It's one of my favorite times of the year to be working with seniors. Mental health on campus. We've had a lot of work improving the counseling center. I know that they've switched over to being able to have, I think you can certainly do all online appointments. They were going to do a texting system, but I'm not sure if that's online just yet. Do you know if that one's up and running yet, Sydney?
I'm not sure, but I do know they were taking steps to creating like more accessible lines of communication on like a lot of different platforms, which is really awesome. And we have full-time counseling staff now. So a lot of things are being done. Students are being consulted, faculty, staff. So it's been a really good group effort and everyone's feedback is being heard. And so, yeah, I think we're taking some great steps for sure.
All right. Well, Mary, you already said your favorite thing of Worcester, or maybe it wasn't bagel time, might not have been your favorite thing of Worcester. So feel free to change it if it's not. But Dan, what's your favorite Worcester, non-WPI, favorite Worcester thing?
Probably Boynton, actually, which is a very good restaurant just right down the street, like walking distance. They have great food and they have super huge portions. So every time I go, I always get 2 meals out of it. It's awesome.
I would say if I had to pick, I'd either go with Bagel Time with Mary, or maybe there's like a bubble tea place just down the way on Gold Star that I really like. And they do bibimbap pretty quickly. It's not the best bibimbap, but it's the fastest bibimbap. So there's the balance there. There's also a wonderful new walking path on the back of Paradise Pond that is just lovely and makes you feel like you're in nature, but in the middle of the city. So I really like that. You can walk there right from campus. And I do it almost every day that it's not snowing. All right. Well, I think that that is all of the questions. If there are any final ones, that anyone's feverishly, what percent are in-state versus out-of-state in mechanical? I don't know that we would know that by major, but by WPI overall. Sydney, do we know that?
I'm not sure percentage of out-of-state students. I know, like, I can tell you the areas, like we have obviously a lot of Massachusetts, but for out-of-state, we have a lot in New England. And then like, I guess a secondary area for us is like New York, Pennsylvania, Jersey. And we also have quite a few students from across the country, California, students from Texas, Florida. So we do have students from all over as well. I'm not sure specifically percentages. I started in August at WPI, so I'm still learning all my stats, but yeah, we have a good percentage of out-of-state students.
Mary, there's one in the chat for you in terms of mentioning you picked WPI over RPI and RIT. If you had any comments of why on that.
Yeah, I think a huge one was having a robotics engineering program. I don't know if either of them have one now, but 4 years ago they didn't have one. And then I just liked the campus more. I liked the older, like looking campus with the like brick and like marble. So that was another big reason. And then I guess just like feeling like I had stuff to say that I liked about it, because I couldn't really tell you. Looking back now, I think my favorite thing about RPI was that there was a cool bridge that we drove over to get there, which isn't anything about this school. So.
Great. And then one comment in the chat about diversity of the student body on campus. It's something that we are always looking to increase at WPI. I believe that the current class, the current first year class, is our most diverse class ever, but I don't know percentages. I don't know if you have those numbers, Sydney.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. I have to get updated statistics for the diversity, but I do know that the incoming class was our most diverse. We also are increasing our international students as well. So all of our numbers are trending upwards, which we're really happy about.
Excellent. And I would imagine that maybe on the website they have something about those stats.
Yeah.
So we will leave you hanging in the chat there just because we don't happen to know them off the top of our head. All right.
So did we get everyone in the chat? Yeah, right?
I think we got all the chat questions answered.
Perfect.
All right, wonderful. Well, it was great to have you all here, and thank you so much for your questions, and thank you both Mary and Dan for coming. Sydney, I don't know if you all have any closing things that you want to say to our guests here.
Well, congratulations, everybody that is attending the info session. I know you're all accepted students, so obviously we really hope you choose WPI, but good luck with choosing wherever you may go. And Professor Wodenschwartz and Mary and Dan, thank you so much for sharing with us about ME. It's really, really helpful, really good to hear from all of your perspectives. Yeah.
The only piece of advice I'll give to you seniors out there is it's hard to make this choice, but no matter where you pick, you're likely going to love it, and be kind to yourselves because it can feel like a really stressful time, but it's going to be great. And we hope you choose WPI, but wherever you go, good luck.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.